Hello, welcome back. Good to see you. Today I'm going to talk about how to preserve a child's emotional wellness or emotional health. This is a really interesting topic because I think that a lot of people don't realize what's happened to our emotional system as human beings, but it's been under attack for a really long time, and we need to understand what has happened and be aware of what has happened so that we can begin to reverse it. We are all born very emotional beings. Obviously, children can't talk, and so they communicate with their emotions. Babies cry. That's what we know that goes along with babies. 2-year-olds get angry. We know that they communicate a lot with their anger. So before children can talk, they are communicating with us all the time through their emotions. But what happens is that in our society, we have been taught that emotions are bad, they're wrong, and we need to do everything that we can to turn them off. And I don't think that a lot of people are aware of this, that this has been sort of the programming of us and how unhealthy it is. And when I'm trying to describe this to people, the best way that I like to describe it is, let's say that our digestive system was under attack. Okay. And I think that if we could live without our digestive systems, we would. We would have been encouraged to. But unfortunately, if we don't allow the food in our bodies to go through our bodies and be eliminated, then we would die pretty quickly, right? We would become toxic. If we couldn't urinate the water from our bodies and cleanse the things that need to be cleansed through our urinary tract system, we would become toxic, sepsis. That's why kidney dialysis is a big thing. If we couldn't process the food and eliminate the food from our bodies in an efficient way, then we would become toxic and we would die. We know what happens to people when they have intestinal blockages. It's pretty critical, pretty quick that they become toxic. So obviously on the physical level, we have not been able to stop those things. And I know a lot of people get very grossed out by the elimination system, but we understand how important it is as part of our human process. And so we learn to live with it. But our emotional elimination system is something that we also really do not feel like we like. It's not pleasant. And that can be repressed much easier than our physical elimination system. So, the basis of how we really are designed is that we should, and I hate the word should, but a human being is designed so that we have a feeling, and when we have a feeling, we express that feeling. And when we express it enough, then that feeling dissipates and is gone. It's sort of like a balloon. You know, when you blow a bubble or a bubble, you blow a bubble and the bubble gets really big and then the bubble pops and the bubble is gone. That's how emotions are. So an emotion should come up inside of you and you should feel it. And then as you feel it, it should pop and go away and it would be completely eliminated. But what happens is that we are subconsciously programmed to believe that feelings are not good, they're not wanted, and we do everything we can to push them down. I like to think of it as like a jack in the box. When you take a jack in the box and you try to push a jack in the box down, put that jack in the box in the back in, and then you do the music on the side, and then the jack in the box comes back up, and then you got to push it back in like that. So let's just say that you never ever let the jack come out of the box. Okay, so you just keep pushing it in, pushing it down, and the force keeps getting louder and louder and louder. And that's what happens with our emotional intelligence system, is that more and more crap emotional crap gets buried inside of us from all the experiences and traumas that we have in our lives. And sometimes they can be huge traumas and sometimes they can be tiny little traumas, but they just keep getting buried and buried and buried because we've learned that emotions are not what we want. And so we just stuff them down worse and worse and worse, and we get more and more sick, more and more emotionally unwell. So let's say, for instance, when we think about babies, what's the first thing as a good mom that you try to do? You try to keep your baby from crying, right? And if your baby cries a lot, you feel like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm not a good mom or there's something really wrong. And I'm not saying that you want your baby to cry all the time because obviously crying is communication. When a baby comes in, they cry. That's how they communicate. And so we're trying to figure out, are they hungry? Are they wet? Are they, you know, do they have gas? Are they in pain? So that is all very, very important. And we never want to let a baby cry out things and just cry and cry and cry until they never get relief. But there is a tendency to want to never have a baby cry. And so right away, a baby is getting a signal that that is not wanted and that it's not okay. And it, it it's a fine line, right? It's a fine line to welcome the crying a little bit and then to begin to learn the language of crying so that you can understand, is my baby just expressing its feelings? You know, you can also see when babies get mad, they cry and they arch their back and they let you know, I don't want that person holding me. I don't want, you know, these socks on. I don't want this bottle. I mean, they're communicating all the time, and we can use our intuition or our instinct as, you know, women like the word, it seems like intuition, are comfortable with that word, and men are more comfortable, I think, sometimes with the word instinct. But it's the same thing, really. It's just that knowing that as we work with our children, we start to understand what they're communicating. And if we really pay attention, we can start to understand, do they just need to express themselves a little bit? Do we just need to let them cry a little bit? Do we need to let them get a little bit angry as babies and just help them to learn to breathe and to process the emotion through them? Now, then babies turn into toddlers, and we always call it like the terrible twos, right? That's the age where children begin to say no and they begin to understand that they have a voice and that they get a say and that they, you know, they've already heard no so many times as we try to protect them that they want to say it back, you know. And so, and that's when the temper tantrums can start. And what happens is a lot of times when we were little and we had temper tantrums, we were shamed. We were made to feel guilty. We were made to feel like that's really wrong. Our parents were embarrassed in the grocery store or embarrassed around other people and relatives when we were screaming and when we were having temper tantrums. And so we learn as adults that it's not okay to be angry. And so we sometimes can project that onto our kids and let them know that no, you cannot get angry. And we make them feel really bad when they get angry. And we don't do this on purpose. You know, this has all been passed down from generation to generation. And the number one thing that parents need to do is they need to forgive themselves when they realize that they maybe have made a mistake. Because just imagine if your parents, you know, I'm in my late 50s, and when I grew up, children were to be seen and not heard. There were a lot of rules for children, and children were thought of as second-class citizens, and you did what your parents said. We got spankings, and we were just pretty much expected to behave in certain ways without any say in the matter. but there was also the 60s. My parents grew up as teenagers in the 60s, and there was a whole new way of looking at things. So we were beginning to open the doors to saying, hey, maybe we could do this differently. Maybe there's another way to raise children. And because my parents opened that door for me, it really opened the door for me to say to my children and the generation that came after me, hey, you know what? Your feelings can be important. And maybe we need to rethink this. So we need to have so much grace for ourselves as we learn and grow, and we start to be willing to tell our children, hey, you know what? I might have made a mistake. I'm not perfect. I'm learning. And it, that's all they need. That's all they need. I mean, we all have things to work through as we begin to see all the repressed feelings that we have going on inside of ourselves. But as we learn, how exciting that we can stop and relearn things. And the other thing I have to say is that just because we start to learn that there might be another way, we're not going to be perfect at it. We are learning and growing. And if you, let's say you're going to take up a sport like golf and you get out on the course and you've never learned hand-eye coordination, you've never tried to hit a golf ball with a big stick, and you try and you miss the ball completely and you give up and you just beat yourself up and say how stupid you are. I mean, these are skills that you've never learned. And so they take time. They take time, they take consistency, they take paying attention, they take trying again. And so I'm bringing this to everyone's attention that might be interested because there is a way to learn a different way. And it's not a perfect path, but it is an important path. And I feel like many of us want to do this because we are seeing the emotional trauma that our children and the young adults around us are going through. And we want to help. I have so many parents that reach out to me where their kids are just distraught. They're teenagers, they're young adults, and they want so bad to help them. And the truth is that the parents have to relearn how to feel their own selves so that then they can teach their children how to do this, their adult children, their little children. I mean, we have all been brainwashed, and it has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And we all need to give ourselves some grace. And we need to start to understand that this has been going on for a very long time, and it's everywhere in our society. I mean, even if you just listen to what people say around you, loving, beautiful people who want the best for you, they'll say, oh, don't cry. Don't cry. You're going to make me cry. Oh, stop it. Like that's just ordinary language, and it's language of love. We only say these things because we love each other, but we don't realize that this person needs to cry. They need to cry. They need to get it out of them. And can we just be there and hold them and let them cry? Or, don't get angry. Don't get angry. I'm going to walk on eggshells so and so doesn't get angry. And I mean, anger can be very dangerous. We all know that. But that's because it's so pent up. We have never learned healthy ways to feel anger. We have never learned to join a boxing gym so that we can go hit the bag and so that we can punch out our boss on the bag because we're so angry at how we're treated, how we're belittled at work, or whatever, and it reminds us of how we were belittled when we were little. So there are all these things that we are dealing with as adults, and that if we don't learn how to become emotional beings ourselves, we can't teach our children because words don't teach. Our children learn by watching us. They learn by watching us repress our feelings. And then also by us telling them that, don't get angry, or I'll give you something to cry about. That's something I heard when I was little. Or go to your room if you can't control your emotion. And that doesn't mean that we let our kids, have temper tantrums in the grocery store. What it means is that we understand when they have temper tantrums in the grocery store and we bring them home and we give them a safe place to feel their anger. And we start to begin to teach them the appropriate ways to feel anger. And we start to recognize that we feel a lot of shame and guilt when we feel anger, or we feel a lot of shame and guilt when we cry, or men are taught that they are weak when they cry, or women are taught that they are very unlikable when they are angry. There's just so many messages out there in the world of how our emotions are not okay. And so as we begin to reclaim our emotional wellness in our own selves, then we can start to teach our children how to have healthy emotional elimination systems, just like our physical elimination systems. So, like, let's say that you have a child who gets in a fight with their friend. Instead of attacking the friend or attacking the child or saying that all of these emotions are bad, can we instead say, I understand that you are really upset. Tell me about it. I want to hear about it. And just be witness to the sadness, to the feeling it's not fair, to the feeling of, Mom, I just need you to listen and give me a hug and let me cry or let me feel angry, and not attack the other child, but just say, you know what? In life, we are going to have disagreements, and that's okay. And so just feel it. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be uncomfortable. That's the other thing, is we think we need to be so comfortable, and we're always so busy trying to be comfortable and stay in our comfort zone. And that's not realistic. Life is not a comfort zone. It can be real, we all know that it is uncomfortable so much of the time. And if we can learn to express ourselves and to be uncomfortable and to let our feelings move through us and out of us, we will start to see that we can feel more and more emotionally healthy by beginning to empty that tank full of emotion that is just, I almost think of it as like a cesspool of emotion that's been stuck in there since we were little. And it needs to be emptied. It needs to be cleaned out. There are so many wounds in there. And the way to get rid of the wounds is to just start going in there and cleaning them out and recognizing them. And we don't have to spend a whole lot of time. We don't have to spend 20 years going over them and just talking about them. We don't release our past and the traumas in our lives by talking about them. We release them by feeling them, going back into those old feelings, breathing, feeling them, talking as if we are that small child, and letting those things go from the emotional place. So I hope this has been helpful. And if you have questions about this, or you would like to know more about any of this I've talked about, please leave questions in the comments, or you can reach out to me at laura@poweredbyemotions.com and just send questions to me. I'd be happy to make more videos to help people understand more. I'd be happy to have a call where people can ask me questions. So I think this is really important. This is the basis of a lot of the work that I do. So I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.